medium well.
Hello, good afternoon. This is Steve Wright speaking in person. Normally I start right now, but today I'm giving away an hour of my show because we've got a bank holiday special for you. So I'll be back at 3. Meanwhile, here's the Police talking with David Jensen.
Thanks, Steve. On the left, Stewart. On the right, Andy. And Sting. Welcome back to Radio 1. Now, 18 months is, in this business, a long time not to have any new music. But that's exactly the state of play for you. So what everybody wants to know is what you guys have been up to in the last year and a half. Stewart.
Lots of gigs. Maybe we haven't been recording, we've been playing. From the last recording, we've been touring since then mostly. And then we made another record. And then we had some time off.
Now, there were reports as recently as a month or two ago that the band was going to split up because you all seem to be involved in solo projects. But I think, Andy, that you did take a bit of time off from each other, didn't you?
I think it's necessary, you know, like a marriage, really. And the only way to keep the marriage together is to take a little bit of time off. I mean, doing solo projects really adds to the longevity, because obviously we're into our 5th, I think it's our 6th year this summer. So if you imagine the amount of hours we've actually spent in cars and hotel rooms and stages, it's phenomenal. So at this point, I think it's only healthy that we spend time apart, but it certainly doesn't mean we're splitting up.
Now, I know, Sting, for sure you haven't been resting in this time because you've been very active with your movie making, and even though you look very tanned at this point.
He looks obnoxiously tanned. Sickeningly.
Is this from the sun itself?
I spent some great sunny days in Newcastle. I was windsurfing and...
It's not a tan, it's cold.
Water skiing.
I suspect this came from a southern climate.
All right. I went back to Montserrat, where we do our albums, for a holiday, without having to do any work. It was great.
Yeah, I bet. Well, all or as much as can be revealed will be revealed with the Police on this bank holiday special after the current single, Every Breath You Take. The current single from the Police. We're going to talk about the recent past, but before we do that, because this is a Police special, let's go way back. Stuart, you were the founder member of the Police.
Guilty as charged.
And that was in 1977?
That's right. The end of 1977.
And
wait a minute, it was the beginning of 1977. End of 76, beginning of 77.
If I remember correctly, I mean, it was a fairly punky scene in those days, wasn't it?
It was a fairly punky scene.
Was it your intention to play punk music?
No, we didn't want to play punk music. We just wanted to play the punk clubs to the punks, because it was the only kind of places that you could play, unless you had a record company and could play the colleges.
Because I remember Andy playing with very different types of artists, like Neil Sedaka in the past, and David Essex as well. Yeah. And you, Sting, were, before you met Stuart, playing in Newcastle at jazz clubs?
Yeah, I was really a school teacher, I wasn't a musician.
So
that's what I thought at the time.
Nothing's changed.
I'm still a school teacher, boy.
So what, how did you meet these guys?
I discovered Sting, and Andy discovered Sting and I. Well, Sting was playing in a group in Newcastle. I happened to be there. I was on tour with Kurt there, and I saw him playing in a group, and later on, I called him up from London and said, let's form a group. So we formed a group, and he had a different guitarist called Henry Padovani, and then we did a session for a guy called Mike Howlett.
Mike Howlett was the one that actually
that's right.
brought the 3 of us together.
Well, yeah, I guess so. Sting and I were the bass player and the drummer on the session, and the guitarist on the session was Andy. And Andy decided that we were the group for him.
You were unusual in that you were a trio as well at the time, because there were lots and lots of quartets about.
Oh, we thought it was a quartet.
We couldn't get anybody else to join us.
How many are in a quartet, then?
Well, the idea was that we could fit in a cab. I mean, it was either you had a record company to pay for your truck and stuff, or you had a group that didn't need a truck. We could fit into Sting's Citroen and make it to a gig.
Or mine.
Do you remember a fleet of Citroens?
Do you remember your first gig? That was in Birmingham, wasn't it?
No, our first gig was in Bristol.
No, it wasn't. It was in South Wales.
It was in Cardiff, that's right. No,
Cardiff. Played 30 songs in 15 minutes. It was hilarious.
Well, whose songs were you playing? Because you hadn't known each other that long, so you weren't collaborating.
Well, we started out with my songs, because I had the bamboozle Sting into he was joining a group. It was supposed to already be a group.
You fooled me.
We had to have material, too, so, okay, here's all the material, and it was all like 1 or 2 chords, and that was the set. That was the material.
And how soon after that did Fallout come out? Because that's the indie single that a lot of fans are not even aware of. I get mail for it on my evening program occasionally from people asking to hear it, because that was like a true indie single, wasn't it?
Well, that was step 2. Having conned the musicians into joining the group, then we had to make a record. And so I borrowed some money from a friend, and we went into Pathway Studios and recorded
Did
it.
you pay him back?
No, to this day, I've never paid him back, except that he gets his name is Paul Mulligan, and he lives in Aberdeen, and he dines out on having lent us our money to make our first record.
He's
well rewarded.
Here's the Police. And on illegal records, Fallout. That was Fallout. That was the first single from the Police, and you really soon after that kind of established your style. You picked up on reggae rhythms, didn't you? But who in particular in the field of reggae or outside reggae do you guys admire?
Bob Marley was the man who introduced reggae to almost everybody, I would think. I mean, he was a great crossover artist. It's a great loss that he's actually not with us anymore, I feel.
Yeah, I think actually, for me, seeing The Harder They Come and Jimmy Cliff in particular made a big impression on me, as well as Bob Marley.
Then there was Desmond Decker and the Israelites. That was the first one that caught my ears.
That's still a great record.
Yeah.
Are you acknowledged at all in Jamaica, the home of reggae, as...
I think...
I heard our record a lot when I was in Jamaica, an awful lot. And also, all over the Caribbean, they play our records.
Last year, what was it? Bet to Big Without You was recorded with both Sly and Robbie. Certainly when we've been to Montserrat twice, you get the feeling that the Police were more acceptable than some other kinds of rock music because of that sort of crossover thing.
Sure. I mean, you were the first band to succeed, really, in this field. Other bands tried using reggae in other ways and did not have the success you had.
The difference between us playing it and a lot of other groups, maybe, and I'm not, this is not a trumpet-blowing thing, but to us it was a means to getting somewhere else, not to copy reggae and make it a huge part of our style. It was a way of approaching the use of guitar, bass and drums and trying to change the traditional trio sound. You know, the words from like the heavy sort of sheet sound of like someone like Hendrix or, you know, Eric Clapton with the Cream. We wanted a different sound out of the trio, and the reggae enabled us to get into that approach. You know, what makes the Police is there are so many disparate influences and different strands. We all have different
Desperate
backgrounds.
influences, too.
Oh, and desperate, too. And it comes out of the difference between us and the diversity of the backgrounds, not the similarities.
It might have made records easier to make, in fact, if we'd all been in the same mind, but the fact is we're not, which is the cause of a lot of argument, I suppose, but also the cause of the dynamic in the group, which has made us very successful.
Your first hit was Roxanne, but I mean, that had to be reissued to become a hit. On whose instigation was it reissued?
It's an accident of history because it was a hit in America first time off, or a relative hit. And we came back to England with that sort of glory under our belt, saying, oh, we've had a hit in America. And they thought, oh, well, we'll re-release it in England, see what happens. And it, sure enough, paid off.
Police's first major hit single, and as we said, first a hit single in the United States. There was one other record about that same time that also was reissued to become a hit, which was Can't Stand Losing You. Was that the same story, a hit abroad and then...
I think that was your instigation, actually.
I seem to remember.
Yes, it was. It was Kid Jensen's record of the week.
I remember jumping up and down in the studio somewhere going, wow, Kid Jensen likes it.
That's right. You had
made it.
the taste and the urbanity back then to recognise it. You were the
We salute you, Kid. Or David,
Brings
or whatever
tears to
you
my
call
eyes.
nowadays.
Well,
Mr. Jensen.
79 was a
Mr.
good year.
Jensen.
Yes, you can call me Mr. Jensen, because in the autumn you had your first #1 single, which was Message in a Bottle, which came from the LP, which allegedly you went in and recorded without rehearsing or having any songs written for Regatta de Blanc.
That's the way we do all our albums. Oh, the songs are written, but I mean, we don't rehearse and arrange them until we get in the studio.
I mean, isn't that very expensive? I mean, even in those days when you didn't have a great deal of loot, I suppose.
No, we were known for how cheaply we recorded.
We recorded it above a dairy in Leatherhead. I mean, it wasn't exactly... Well, that then became the very famous and illustrious Leatherhead recording studios. What's the name of it? Surrey Sound, yeah. But we were one of the first people in there, and they still had the cows. And
Yeah, but you know, when we recorded that album, we'd gone through our first sort of major flush of success, and we'd been on the road for something like 9 months. So, you know, going into the studio for the second album was a whole different story from the first one.
What, easier, you mean?
Yeah, we were much better. We were, like, really into playing. You know, we'd been playing for months and months in America. We were hot.
The LP brought you a couple of #1s, didn't it? Walking on the Moon was also #1
Right.
in the UK. Is it, are both those numbers still ones that you enjoy playing live? Because presumably Message in a Bottle especially is what people come to see.
That's still my favourite
perform.
number to actually play. It gives me the biggest thrill, the biggest spine tingle.
Because you do improvise a lot, don't you? I mean, I suppose that keeps it fairly interesting, unlike some artists who actually play note for note and tempo for tempo, like the song exactly as it appeared on record. I mean, you do tend to kind of stretch things out, and that must keep it more interesting for you.
I think it's a combination of, you know, really wanting to take the risks on stage and also having a slightly sloppy attitude to being disciplined. So we tend to go on, and those things occur, you know, but we always leave that spontaneous moment to arise, which it does once or twice a year.
The Police Bank Holiday Special here on Radio 1. Message in a Bottle, of course, was the song, and Stuart and Sting and Andy are here. I want to talk about solo projects now, and I hope you guys want to talk to them as well. And also ask each of you for your individual favorite Police number. Andy, I'd like to start with you and talk about your LP, which was issued a few months ago, the one that you did with Robert Fripp, I Advance Mask. Were you pretty well pleased with the way the LP was received? Because it wasn't a blatant commercial attempt, was it?
No, it wasn't. That wasn't really the idea. I wanted to do something that sort of musically and everything else was sort of away from the Police.
Very nice.
No, it was a bit...
Gratitude you get, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right.
You bring
Nice.
it from the gutter. Teach him how to play the guitar.
Well, see, my two friends taught me how to play the guitar, and then Robert Fripp took me under his wing. Now, I wanted there to be no confusion about what was going on, and it seemed...
Oh, there was no confusion, was there?
No.
that we'd go off and talk about it. I was very pleased. It was a big success in America. It actually got up to 60 with a double bullet, and it's sold about 100,000 records so far, and I think it was a musical success and a commercial success, because I think it was... Just wait until you have a go. I mean, it was only intended as a project on the side. It was pretty fast and cheap to record, and it was a lot of fun.
Would you like to do it again with Robert Fripp or anyone else, do you think? It's got something completely different.
Very much. I'd like to do another one with Robert. The idea actually was to do a tour of Europe and America. You know, time is very difficult to make, you know, what with him being in King Crimson, me being in...
Please, look,
that's right,
please,
yeah.
Andy.
But I was very pleased with it.
Sure. You were friends with Robert Fripp before, weren't you? I mean, it's not somebody you just met
Before
for
the
that,
album,
yeah. For that occasion.
Yes, that's true. We are both actually from the town of Bournemouth. Well, Robert's actually from Wimborne, which is the same area.
Yeah.
And we were there at the same time as teenagers playing guitar. So it was very nice after all these years to actually come back and do something. We recorded most of it in Bournemouth. So we were able to sorry, lapse into
Keep it, don't let it go.
into the sort of,
More brandy,
a
please.
sort of heavy Dorset background when we were down there. It was great fun.
Sure. Now, the other fellas, of course, Sting and Stuart, have been involved with
Who?
the pictures. Do you have any ambitions to write music or make music?
I
for
already
films?
have 2 projects for next year.
Oh, yeah.
While we're on solo projects, I might as well give this a plug on the TV here. That I just spent 3 months in New York putting a photo book together, which will be out in England in October, and there will be an exhibition at Hamilton's Gallery, probably at the beginning of December.
This sounds like an ambition realized for you. I mean, something you must have wanted for some time.
Well, yeah, I've been photographing away during the last 3 or 4 years, and there's a sort of culmination of it. And I actually just did it the last 2 or 3 months in New York, and it's been a lot of stress and hard work. I never realised how difficult it was to put a book together. It was much harder than making records. But anyway, the whole thing is complete now, and all they have to do is print it, and it'll be out in October.
What sort of photography is there? Is it abstract, or is it...
No, it's all black and white, and it's all shot sort of my life, I suppose, and around the band and in strange countries and street scenes and kind of abstracted stuff and surreal. This is pretty bizarre, right across the board.
Right. Did you need expensive camera equipment to go and do this?
Mostly I used just SLRs.
Lots
I
of
carried
them.
a few lenses. You know, I experiment a lot with cameras over the last 3 years. I'm actually glad in some ways that this period has come to an end because I won't have to lug as much equipment around as I was doing. It was getting a little heavy going. I mean, I almost collapsed last August because we toured for something like 6 weeks and I was playing all the time and I was taking photographs all the time, and it was pretty intense. You know, I felt like I was doing 2 jobs full
Yes.
time. I was worn out at the end.
Right, Andy, what is your choice of like police tracks past? Which one of all the ones that you could choose would you choose?
Well, as we've played Message Model, which it remains my perennial favourite, but I would like to hear Peanuts today as my choice today.
Any
I
reason?
like the guitar solo on it. I like it because I think it was a radical approach at the time, and I think it's a good song, and I like Sting's goat horn playing at the end. I think it's an interesting track. It's a good lyric, too.
Right then, this is Andy's choice, Peanuts. That's Peanuts, the B-side of Roxanne, Andy Summers' other favorite Police single. Well, I'll be finding out about Stuart and Sting's solo project soon, but now at 2:30 we're going to break for the news. And welcome back to our Police Bank Holiday Special. Sting, Andy, and Stuart are all here with me. Stuart, let's find out about your solo adventures. Now, you, I read just recently, have been involved with some music for a film. Is it called Rumblefish?
That's right, Rumblefish. It's a film directed by Francis Ford Coppola about a guy.
But a guy. What kind of guy?
I'm not supposed to say anything beyond that. You know, like I got a lecture before I left town, left Hollywood. They say, okay, don't say anything.
Oh, it was about a fish.
Oh, there's a fish in it, too. A few fish.
But you can't tell us anything other than that.
Well, no, I mean, don't want to give the plot away.
Sting? What have you been saying?
How did you meet Francis Ford Coppola? Because he, of course, had a lot of success with The Godfather, didn't he? And the Vietnam picture, Apocalypse Now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I got a
Apocalypse.
telephone call. It was literally a phone call from Hollywood. And what do you do when you get a phone call from Hollywood but rush over there? In fact, when I showed up, it wasn't Hollywood, it was Tulsa, Oklahoma, which is where they were rehearsing this movie. In fact, they shot it in Oklahoma as well. I started out, he wanted me as a rhythmic advisor, because the story involves time and the passage of time. And as we know, time and rhythm are related, and so that's why they called me up. But once I was in the door, I was there to stay, and by the end of the day, I did all the music. And the day after the end of the day, I got in some strings and a few horns and stuff just to fill it out. But basically, I was able to take this movie and fill it all up with music by myself. I had no idea it would be possible for me to do. I mean, I've written a few pop songs in the past and, you know, faked it on guitar and stuff like that. But actually to do a serious project like this was more than I expected myself to be able to accomplish.
And he's just having a little drink of mineral water over there.
He's having several drinks of mineral water at once.
I had a call from Hollywood once. I forgot to pick out my dry cleaning.
No, he's jealous. He's waiting for his movie part.
Clearly. So this is what you've been doing in your time away from the police.
Well, not just that.
Call from Hollywood once. I forgot to pick out my dry cleaning.
No, he's jealous. He's waiting for his movie part.
Clearly. So this is what you've been doing in your time away from the police.
Well, not just that. I've got my own private Hollywood here in London.
You have?
I went on tour with some punk groups, and I shot a film, which is a 30-minute film of Bedlam in England. It's sort of like England through the eyes of the unemployed punks. And there's millions of them out there. I had no idea that they were still there here, and it was 82. There are millions of them. At every one of these gigs, they were all packed houses, and they're even wilder and weirder than they were in 77.
What bands were you with?
The Anti-Nowhere League, Chelsea, The Defects, and Kron Gin. I just finished the movie, which is why I'm so full of that. It's really cool directing a movie.
Right. Did you still get a real kick out of the music as well, or was it just the experience?
Well, the music was good. I've always liked punk music. Sting's laughing because he
I'm
hates
nothing
it.
it, Andy.
All right. But
Being very amusing over here.
I just like loud guitar music with loud drums and loud everything and with people shouting, and I like watching people pogoing, and it's just more exciting than your average gig and very photogenic.
I can imagine. All right, it's your music choice then from the past. Stuart Copeland, what would you choose?
Does everyone stare the way I do? I like that one because of the accidental moment at the beginning, which is recorded in my basement, and there's wires everywhere. And while I was recording, the wires picked up a radio signal just by accident of this operatic voice. It just came in and recorded itself right then, right on the tape, and it was in tune, in rhythm, and the right kind of feeling and everything.
That was synchronicity, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was synchronicity. Even way back then, we were achieving synchronicity.
Right then. Okay, Stuart Copeland with the Stuart Copeland tune. Police, Does Everyone Stare the Way I Do? Special for you here on Radio 1. Stuart Copeland chose Does Everyone Stare the Way I Do, and now it's Sting's choice of song. But Sting, you have been, I guess, the most visible of the other two members of the police, because we've been reading about all sorts of things about your personal life, of course, and financial things. Now this...
Our private life, you mean?
Yes, this is something that must bother you. I mean, judging by things that I've read about your response to having your personal life sort of in the newspapers, it's an aspect of success I get the impression that you're not overly fond of.
Frankly, I've stopped reading the papers that produce this kind of thing, so I'm not affected by it. I don't know what they print. They invent a private life for you, and then they comment on it, and they can do what they like. It's not me they're talking about, it's some invention.
But what about the way your audiences will then sort of see you or perceive you as a character? Is that not important? The way, even if you don't...
No, I think the audiences listen to the music, and whether or not the papers print me as a a bad boy or not. You know, they're still got a good voice and I write good songs. That's all that matters.
What are you doing for your voice? I was reading that you go through these exercises before you go on stage, and then you were telling me another time about having with the Alexander method. Was it of lying on the floor?
Alexander technique.
It's
of
drama.
Lying on the floor before. Yes, is that a way of psyching yourself up, or
No,
are you
it's really
concerned
it's
about
the
your
opposite.
voice?
It's the way of trying to relax. What causes voice strain is tension in your shoulders and your neck and your throat. So what I try and do before the gig is completely relax myself. It also helps you to move better. But it's it's important if you do a 3-month tour and you sing every night and you sing for an hour and a half non-stop, your voice gets tired.
So, I mean, you don't do that kind of thing then when you're out making motion pictures? You don't have any...
Oh, yeah, it's the same thing. If you can relax in front of a camera, then you look better.
I mean, I was reading this report only a few weeks ago in one of the papers you probably don't read now, that, and you can confirm or not the truth behind the fact that you are going to be Fletcher Christian, in other words, the lead role in Mutiny on the Bounty soon.
No, it was offered to me.
Mia plays.
I was invited to dinner with Dino De Laurentiis, who's some very famous Italian producer. And they said, I offer you Fletcher Christian, and he gave me the script, and I just didn't think it was good.
Not mean enough.
Now, that's curious, because you would have followed the paths of Clark Gable and Marlon Brando in that role.
I wasn't actually concerned about it being a remake, because most of the cinema audience had never heard of Mutiny on the Bounty. They'd never heard of Marlon Brando either. I don't do movies unless the script's really good.
So something that you have most recently been working on definitely is Dune, which is a science fiction picture, and I know nothing about it apart from having seen the book Dune in bookshops.
I'm playing a bad guy.
Well, you were a bad guy in Brimstone and Treacle as well.
No, they seem to...
He was a bad guy all the time.
I'm just a bad guy. I don't have to
Bad
act. Makes it easier.
What can you tell us what Dune is about?
It's probably one of the most famous science fiction books written in the past 20 years by Michael Frank Herbert. The film, because it's just a large project, is costing $50 million, which is something of a record. They're making it in Mexico so the dollar can go further. Even if it's a lousy film, it'll be an event. That amount of money cannot go unnoticed.
Things getting after them.
Apparently the sets are absolutely wonderful. I tried my costume on last week and it looks really good. It's sort of Japanese armour with a codpiece.
Yeah.
It's going to be fun.
What about Brimstone and Treacle now? Are you happy with the way that came out?
Brimstone and Treacle worked wonders for me, actually. It got great critical reviews, particularly in America. And since then, I've been offered some very exciting parts, so it was a big success for me personally. It didn't sell a lot of seats. I mean, it wasn't meant to be an E.T. or anything like that. Oh, it was a good British movie, and I think it'll come back.
Well, with all the motion picture stuff you're working on, obviously these are ambitions being realized for you, and you clearly enjoy acting. Would you like to do what many famous actors go on to do, which is actually go onto the stage after reaching millions of people in the cinema? They actually would like to do some stage
I would,
work.
actually. I was speaking to a man called Adam Faith about 2 weeks ago, and he was saying he did that. He was a pop star, and he did a couple of movies, and then he decided to go into rep to learn how to act, because no matter how many films you make and how good you are, in the acting profession, they always say, oh, well, he's never been on the boards, he's never done it, he's never acted properly. So I'd like to redress the balance. I'd like to do a play. I'll probably play Bottom or something.
All right. Here's your chance to
I like to
play
play Puck.
one of your old favourites, Police Numbers. Which have you chosen?
This is a great track. It's called Dead End Job. I just think it's lunatic. I mean, I love the sort of crazy, bizarre... It's Andy doing all the silly adverts at the end.
Happy sausage eater, yeah.
We recorded very late at night.
The Police, that was Dead End Job, the B-side of Can't Stand Losing You. Noises by Andy Summers, who's... what are you doing there now with the water bottle?
He's still making noises.
Still making noises. He's a musician. Always experimenting, looking for new sounds constantly. When you guys are away in America, doing films or playing with other people or just on holiday, do you make it a point to keep up with the music trends at all in the UK?
It's really hard to. They move so fast. Every time we come back from tour, we feel provincial. I mean, suddenly you look at Top of the Pops and 10 out of 20 groups in the top 20 you've never heard of before.
Who are these DJs?
Who are these DJs? Well, England has better access for new bands to the charts than anywhere else in the world. And that's what makes England such a vibrant place musically. That's why all the big trends come out of England.
Yeah, I think you're right. It must have concerned you at one point, though, having been away from this country for a long time, because things change so fast. Did you ever have any doubts about, will they still love us? Will they still remember us?
I think, you know, obviously we go away. We don't want to get in an ivory tower or be so smug that when we come back we don't think we've got to work really hard or really, like, try to keep, you know, the edge in our music. But at the same time, you can go crazy if you try and listen to every new band that comes out or to stay with the pop charts all the time, because it proliferates so much in England. It's truly impossible, because really we have to think about our own music more than anything else and trying to keep that alive. And I don't think it comes from listening to the latest pop group that comes out every week in England. I think you find a few major ones that you really think are interesting. You find your peers and see what's happening, and I think that's the way it truly is. And I mean, I only find so far 3 or 4 things that really turned me on.
Well, can you name some of the things?
I mean, I watched Aztec Camera the other night on BBC Two. I thought they were great. I really enjoyed them. I like, you know, Susie the Creatures' new single, Big Country.
Now, what about playing live for you? Because, I mean, since 1977 you guys have played live, and really you've worked very hard, not just in the UK and America and Europe, but of course you made history when you went to some of the Far Eastern countries and played live. When was the last time you actually were on stage together?
Good question.
Well, it was last September. About September 9th.
Yes, New Mexico.
Yeah, we finished in Las Cruces, New Mexico.
Right.
That's right.
Are you now kind of itching to get going again? Is it?
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. We rehearsed in Los Angeles a few weeks back. That was fun.
Right.
We'll be starting in July.
In the UK?
Yeah, we're doing some dates in England before.
We're doing some unannounced gigs, maybe 3.
But we hope
actually.
to do a major.
Yes,
all the new album, yeah.
And you recorded this new LP in Montserrat. So what is it about Montserrat that appeals to you? Because this is the second LP that's been done there.
It's an idyllic Caribbean island. You know, you feel like working, you feel like getting up in the morning, it cheers you up.
Yeah, after you've
It's
been
lovely.
there for, you know, a week or 10 days, you know, and all the city living kind of leaves, and you get sort of into the a more organic way of life. You swim in the sea, you know, you brush up against palm trees, you walk through wet grass, you get fit, and it actually is very conducive to working, ironically enough. It's
I
nice.
always swore after Zenyatta Mondata, which is our 3rd album, we made it in Holland, and it rained for about 4 weeks, solid, and I got really ill. I couldn't speak, my nose got all blocked out with cold. So I thought, right, from now on, I'm going to make records in the sunshine, and that's been the way since.
And it's obviously worked really well.
I haven't got a cold now.
Listen, the LP cover
Mantan.
is not here now. And I asked you what was the LP cover, and you said, ask us when the microphone's around, because there's obviously some sort of story to tell about this, Stuart.
The idea was that we each designed our own little section of the album cover. It's 3 strips, and we each did our own part, unknown to the other 2. And we each did our shots, and we didn't get to see what the other 2 had done until the end of the day. And it's amazing how many things, how much synchronicity was achieved.
Right. I'm going to ask you about that title track and LP title after we hear Wrapped Around Your Fingers. Sting wrote this. It's a love song, is it? The title would imply
No,
it might be.
not really. I suppose it is about love. But the actual story is about the alchemist. A sorcerer's apprentice, really, turning the tables on his master. But it could be about love.
Love.
It could be about football.
It's about fingers.
It's about fingers, right. Wrapped Around Your Fingers. Police.
It's about my gaffer tape, actually.
That was the Police and Wrapped Around Your Fingers from the new LP, Synchronicity. Now, why the title Synchronicity? I mean, you mentioned that these things, even a few years ago, were happening to your life.
Some of the best things that happen in music happen by accident, particularly with 3 musicians. When you play and you improvise, sometimes by accident you get some amazing things that you couldn't organize. Synchronicity is a theory about coincidence. We feel that was related to the music somehow.
Actually, no, I mean, I don't know if this is just really too fatuous, but I mean, I think it's slightly synchronistic that all 3 of us actually met in Newcastle without knowing, you know, I did this Tubular
before
Bells
we ever
concert, Sting was playing in Last Exit on the same show. I met Stuart in a hotel room in concert when he was in Curved Air, and I was playing with Kevin Ayers, I think. And a few months later...
Was that in Newcastle?
It was in Newcastle, and we all met up together in this one studio, and I was trying to remember, I played with this, I met this guy before, and it didn't occur to me at the time, and finally, and then Sting told me at the same session that he'd been on that show, so, oh, you know, if you want a little bit of synchronism, there's
There are
one
lots
for
of
you.
coincidences in our careers. It sort of makes you wonder about destiny, you know. Maybe we were destined to become a big group.
Are you guys intending to stay together as a unit then after the tour?
After this interview, probably
what do you
not.
mean? What do you mean?
Well, do you plan on carrying on kind of indefinitely
Well, you
with
know.
your solo projects and then coming together?
These things about the solo projects, let's not get confused. The solo projects are what keep us together.
I mean,
if
I
it
don't
weren't for
even
the
know.
solo projects, we would go crazy.
I don't think of them as solo projects. I mean, we're three guys, we're in a band, and we also have we have lives. We do other things as well.
Yeah.
Starting in July, we'll be touring for 6 or 7 months. That's a lot of work
That is a lot
together.
of
And then,
work, yeah.
naturally, we're going to need a break for a while.
Sure.
But, I mean, it's nice for us to go off and do other things, because sometimes it's just as refreshing to go off and work on another project as much as go on holiday.
I think we've always
it's,
maintained the freedom as individuals and as a group to say, well, if tomorrow we don't feel like being a group, we won't be. It's not as if we have to be a group to breathe the air, you know. We're not joined at the hip. We're actually, you know, we have lives that are separate.
It's joined at the wallet.
Right. Thank you, Andy and Sting and Stuart, for coming in for our police special this afternoon. This is the title track from the forthcoming LP, which is out when?
You're asking us.
Okay. Coming up, the title track from the forthcoming LP, which will be out on the 20th of June. This is Synchronicity. Actually, it's one of 2 songs on the LP called Synchronicity. Have I got that right?
That's
Yeah,
right.
it's a coincidence.
It's amazing, these coincidences.
Forthcoming Police LP due out in a few weeks' time, and you've been listening to a police special on this Bank Holiday Monday.
And it's 3 o'clock.
Which means it's time for Steve.
Right.
Right.
Yes! I love it! Thank you, David Jensen was talking to the police.
Steve Wright in the afternoon.